Boards and booze, booze and boards, drinks and beers, fight some hordes. Drank too much, forgot our swords, ran back home, filled our gourds, got drunk again, sang some chords. Boards and booze and boards, with Mickey and Jeb. Hey everyone!
Boo!
Oh my gosh.
Guess who I am?
Oh, you're the boogeyman?
The boogeyman! I'm the boogeyman.
Not a ghost without
Because what are we
feet.
playing today, Jeff?
We're playing Endangered Orphans, right?
Yep,
Of Condyle Cove, I think.
Condyle Cove.
Condyle Cove. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Probably could have
whatever.
figured that
Doesn't
out
matter.
before, but...
Alright, so this is a Kickstarter that just came out. This just arrived.
Both Mickey and I kickstarted it.
Yep.
I think we went with the basic pledge,
We did.
right?
We did, and we did not crank up to all the expansions.
They did a bunch of add-ons.
Yeah,
that you could-
little add-on packs to
Yeah.
it. The company is Certifiable
Studios. But that's what it says on here. Their website says...
Certifiable Games, and
Yeah,
if you go there, you end up at the Kickstarter page. So I don't, who knows what they're doing. The game designer is nobody. Nobody designed this game.
Whoever designed it, thank you for designing it, because now we get to play it. So,
It really isn't on the box.
oh well, if they want to see it, they can hunt
Maybe that's
it down.
because we got the Kickstarter box.
I don't know.
Maybe it's somewhere else.
But
I don't know.
it was designed by some people who had a really good sense of humor.
It is pretty funny.
A lot of the fluff stuff is hilarious.
Yes.
Real quick, it's ages 14 and up, 2 to 4 players, and 10 to 30 minutes. It is a pretty quick game. So
yeah. Well, actually, it's 1 to 4 players.
1 to 4, yes. There is a solo mode.
There's a solo variant.
Yeah. So, gist of the game: each player adopts an orphan, and you're trying to keep them from
getting eaten by the boogeyman.
Yeah.
And that's literally what they say: eaten by the boogeyman.
Yep. So it's not co-op or anything. Actually, you mess with each other more than anything.
Right.
So that's pretty much it. Don't die.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. So we'll be back in a second. We'll show you the components of the game, and we will go through probably a 3-person gameplay.
Yep.
And then we'll do a review like we always do.
Yeah, like all our other videos that you should check out.
Alright, so we'll be back in a second.
We actually have everything to Endangered Orphans that comes in the box. It is on the table right now.
At least it came with the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I don't remember what they said was... At this point, I don't remember what was Kickstarter exclusive and what's not, so please pardon us if we mess anything up in that aspect.
Right. So, let's start with the player pad.
Okay.
The game came with 4, what are they, neoprene?
Something like that. They're the...
It's like a playmat.
Yeah. It's like a playmat for whatever you use. They're really cool. It was a nice addition to the game. Basically, they all have a different artwork, which is really neat. Place for your deck, place for your discard. If you've played card games on a playmat before, you know that it makes everything just a little bit easier in terms of picking up cards. And it's always nice to have a space to remember where to put stuff just so it stays nice and neat.
Yep. Next up are the option cards. Let's go with those.
Alright, so the option cards, there's various option cards. This is the bulk of the game. This is what you are going to play the game with. The idea of the game is to not run out of cards. Next,
we'll do the cul-de-sac because that is kind of the starting point.
There's only one card. It has the same back, a similar color back as these Acts of Desperation cards, but it says cul-de-sac. You turn it over and it has the kitty corner, which is basically the card that sits in the center of the board that you build the little town, I guess it's a town around.
Suburb.
Yeah, whatever.
And then next to that are the Acts of Desperation.
Right. So these are going to be randomized. One of them is a boogeyman. There are, when you are in the kitty corner, you might have to randomly pick one of those. You're trying to avoid the boogeyman because if you get the boogeyman, you lose.
Yep.
You get eaten, and your orphan is done.
All right, and then the last of the cards are the Cove cards.
And the Cove cards are different locations, and so they are going to be placed around the kitty corner to start forming your town. We're going to call it a town. I don't know what they call it, but that's what we're going to call it. And then you can move around, and each of these cards has a different function while you're on it.
Yep. Next up are the standees, which I guess when it comes out in retail, that's what you're going to get, because I think all the figures were
Kickstarters.
Although,
yeah, so I don't know. Here are they gave us the standees anyways. As you can see, there are only 3. The Kickstarter hit 4th person. We got standees for everything. They are really, really cool. The figures came out really awesome. They're very cute, whimsical, however you want to call it. And then there's also a boogeyman. If you're paying attention, you might be like, but Mickey, you said the boogeyman was in the cards. That's true. This piece actually only gets to be used with the solo play. At least, I mean, you could set him out on the board, like maybe buy these cards or whatever, just so he looks intimidating. The figure's really cool, though. They really are. They are very cool.
Okay, and that's pretty much all you need for just a regular game of Endangered Orphans. But as you can see, there's some more cards above everything we talked about, and that is kind of for expansions, stuff like that. So Mickey will...
So real quick, so the orphan cards, so all of these orphan cards, if you can see, have a small 4 down in the bottom right.
Yep.
That means, guess what? 4 players. And then there's a couple extras here that I don't remember. They're probably one of the expansions. But they weren't in the main deck. There's 2 more acts of desperation. One's an extra boogeyman, and one is my binky. The rule book does say when and how those go in. Some extra Cove cards.
I know some of them are probably, some are 4-player.
This is 4-player stuff, and then like Out in the Cold goes to this last winter expansion, and then there's another little expansion that says the Ghost of Benny Harris. We are not going to use any of this extra stuff when we teach you how to play. You can learn how to do that stuff on your own. So we'll be back in a minute to go over setup and how to play the game.
Yep. We're going to go over the setup. It's pretty quick. So, Mickey, what's the first thing you do to set up a game of Endangered Orphans?
Alright, so we went over the cards. So you have an option deck, a Cove deck, and the Acts of Desperation. So, like any card game, most card games, I shouldn't say any, you're going to shuffle all those separately. So shuffle the options, shuffle the coves, and then shuffle the Acts of Desperation.
I did that in the order he listed, so it's off the camera.
And then we are going to start with the kitty corner, which is the cul-de-sac card. Okay.
So, cul-de-sac on the back.
Put that in the center of the table, and then you're going to build a cross with the Cove cards. Because remember, the Cove cards are, what you use to build the... Jeb and I call it a town. Okay. And so you're just going to randomly put 4 cards out. Right?
And you just set that to the side.
And you're just going to set that to the side as a draw pile. And then you are going to, each player is going to receive option cards. Now, the rule book is not clear on this at all. Jeb and I have decided that the intention of it is that everybody has the same number of options. Although, the company has a very warped sense of humor. So, they might come back and say, your orphan sucks. He gets extra cards. I don't know what they're going to say.
That's
but
true.
as of right now, the way that it is worded in the rulebook is it's just deal option cards.
Yes.
We're going to say, yeah, it just says deal them. So we're going to say that we're going to deal a even amount to each player.
So the option deck has 38 cards. In a 2-player game, 38 divided by 2 is easy. It's 19. 38 divided by 3 gives you some leftover. 38 divided by 4, leftover as well.
Right.
So right now we have a setup of 2 people playing the game, so we'll do this really quick. 1, 2.
And it is, and you are going to get, I mean, assuming you use the even method, everybody just gets a whole pile of option cards. This isn't a draw deck or anything like that. So then you would place your options over here. Oh, by the way, pick your orphans at the beginning of the game. Or that part is probably self-explanatory. You get a, you'll have a figure. Jeb can be that one because I'm just doing random stuff. Once you're at this point, the last cards to set out are the Acts of Desperation cards, and they actually are not in a pile. They get spread out because you get to choose when to do that. Jeb's putting it in a horrible place because the town could go that way, but it doesn't matter.
Well, the town can go that way.
But it could go down that way. I'm just saying that Jeb put it in a horrible place.
Well, this is
I know, it's for
technically
recording
a
places,
scrunched...
but what is my job? To make fun of you.
I know.
Alright, so anyways, yeah. So somewhere in your play area, put the Acts of Desperation in however you want. I mean, you don't even have to put them in a line, but at least stack so that you can see all of them. So people don't just choose off the top of the pile, unless they want to. And then, at that point, everybody gets to draw 2 cards for their starting hand. And so, we would draw 2 cards. Okay. So, at this point, you are ready to play the game. That's how simple.
No, you're not.
Oh, no, we're not.
You got to place your orphans on the board.
Oh, orphans on the board. You are allowed to place, from the 5 cards that are on the board, you can place your orphan anywhere you want. And again, they all have powers, so, and an orphan can be in the same spot. So, anywhere you want.
I'll go to the hills.
I'll go to the open field. I don't remember what it does. I don't care.
Alright. So I think now we're able to start the game.
Actually, just as a matter of order, at least according to the rule book, your pawns are placed before you draw. And that actually is probably important because some of the cards are space specific. So if you knew you had a really good card for an area that was already out, you could have an advantage. So just remember to place your orphans first before you draw. That would be the only thing that you would be really important about keeping the order of.
So let's explain gameplay, Mickey.
All right. So it's simple enough. There are a couple things that I guess make it different from some of the other type of card games you might want to play. But in real quick, on your turn, there are 3 phases that you do in order. There's a move phase, a play phase, and a draw phase. Out of all those phases, only 1 phase is mandatory. You're probably like, what? True. And the phase that is mandatory is the draw phase. Because, which we said real quick during the intro, the object of the game is not to run out of options. If your draw phase comes and you can't draw at least 1 card, you lose. You get eaten by the boogeyman.
So if you're keeping track, there's 2 ways to lose in this game.
Right.
If your options deck is out and you need to draw a card, and if you get the boogeyman in the Acts of Desperation.
Alright. So, that being said, let's go back to the move phase, which is optional. And on your move phase, you can stay on your spot, or you can move 1 to 2 spaces. And you cannot move diagonally.
Right.
So, if this is me, I can move here, or I can move 1, 2, or I can move 1, 2, or I can move 1, 2, but I cannot go 1.
Right.
Alright? So, movement, easy enough. It's basically
0, 1, or 2.
0 to 2 is what you can move on your move. I don't even know why they put 0, because that would basically be not using your move phase.
Right.
Anyways, alright, then the play phase. Again, optional. That's when you can use your option cards in your hand to manipulate the game.
Your hand limit is 4 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So you can play up to however many are in your hand. And you can play, as many as you want. It's
Right.
not restricted to, like, you can only play 1 card a turn. It's
So,
you can play your entire hand if you want.
Right. So the only thing to remember during the play phase is, like Jeb said, you can play as many as you want. But remember, you can't have 4 at the end of your turn. So when we say optional, it's only optional as long as it doesn't conflict with the draw phase. Meaning, I'm going to skip a little bit.
Yeah.
During the draw phase, you have to end your turn by drawing 2 cards. Since you can't hold 4, if I have more than 2 cards in my hand when it comes to the draw phase, I can't do the draw phase, and you're not allowed to do that. So even if you have a card that screws you over, you must play something to get down so you can draw.
Right. There's one exception, and I'll get to that when we talk about the draw phase, and then it clears it all up. So.
And it goes away pretty quick, but I know what Jeb's talking about.
So,
but
anyway, this phase is where you play option cards. All you do is you pick the option card in your hand if you want to play it, read it out loud, tell them your opponents what it does. Once it resolves, you throw it in your discard pile, which is on the mat.
And I'll just give you a quick example of like 1 card so that you get the gist of how this game is kind of, you'll see a lot more during gameplay. But for instance, it's my turn. I'm going to play Swept Away. Everyone in a creek or a beach must discard all cards from their hand. Now remember, you want cards because if you run out of cards, you're going to lose.
Right.
So if Jeb was standing on the creek when I played that card, everything he had in his hand has to be discarded.
Right.
And no, he doesn't draw up at that point in time. He just has no cards.
But fear not, there are some option cards that are defensive that can protect you.
Right. And there are some spots that are sort of defensive, saying you can't be moved, or you can't have cards taken from you, or things like that. But in general, that's how a lot of these cards work. They manipulate the game in some sort of way, or they mess with your opponent in some sort of way. They also can mess with yourself, and that's why it's important of that other rule that if you're
forced to play
the card, you're forced to play a card.
Yeah. So
even if it has no effect, if you have to get to the draw phase and be able to complete the draw phase.
All right. So I think that's everything for the options phase, or the play phase.
Yeah.
So the last phase is the draw phase, and this one's the mandatory one, like Mickey said.
Right.
And what you have to do is draw 2 cards. So there is an exception that you can either draw 2 cards from your option deck, or you can draw a card from your option deck and a card from the Cove deck, or you could draw 2 Cove cards.
Right. You can only draw Cove cards until there aren't any more.
Right, and they run out quick.
Yeah, because there's only 9 of them, and they form however you want. But there is some strategy if you know what you kind of want to do on, like, hey, I'm going to put everything down here or up here or what. But just so you know, the second that you draw one of these, you must place it. So you would flip it over, and then you have to place it so that it is still orthogonally. So you either have to place it here, and so that it doesn't make a diagonal connection also, if that makes any sense. So I can put it here, 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 or here, but I cannot place it in any of these corners, even though there's still an orthogonal movement. It creates that type of a movement. just trust me, that's what the diagram is like in the book. It's not explained very well, but it makes sense.
And if you're wondering, like, you can only put them out like that, and that's kind of...
now you can put one down.
Now you can put one up here and down here and build it like that. So it's not like it's just going to be a huge plus sign.
Right. When you play the game, it kind of makes sense on why they stay, because you really don't want anything in here. You want you don't want a big square. Yeah, you want to be moving around. It's kind of not explained very well in the rule book. There's just a picture, and literally the picture says, yes, I can place one here. No, I can't place one there. That's literally what the picture looks like. So anyways.
And then the thing that I was going to mention was from the last phase where it said that you have to make sure you have enough cards that you don't go over. So in this phase, if Mickey had 2 cards in his hand, he would be fine drawing 2 option cards. If he had 3 cards in his hand going into the draw phase, then he'd be forced to only draw 1 option, 1 cove, or no options, or 2 coves.
Right.
So it kind of depends on how many coves are left as well. But once that runs out, then it's like...
Then that rule really comes into play very strictly on what happens. So, yes, while some cove cards are out, you have a little bit more that you can you can hold on in your hand, so to speak. So, what about these cards? So, I am pretty sure there aren't any option cards that mess with this. I didn't see any, and we've played, and I think it says it in the rule book. This is brand new, so if we make a mistake, we apologize. But when you are on this space, at the beginning of your turn, you must pick one of these cards. Remember, there's a boogeyman in there. So you have a 1 in 6 chance of getting a boogeyman.
Yep.
Otherwise, they do really good things to refresh a low options deck.
Yes.
And mess with other people or whatever it is. So
that's why they're acts of desperation.
Right. That's trying to... Right, because you're almost out of the game. The boogeyman's right around the corner. You got to take the act of desperation and just go for it. So you go on there. You pick the card, you immediately do what it says, as long as it's not the boogeyman, then you take your normal turn.
Yeah, the card that you draw, if it's not the boogeyman, it's out of the game after you do it.
Yes, nothing goes back in there.
There is one exception. When you draw the boogeyman, your orphan dies, so you're out of the game. But if there's still multiple people left in the game, what you're going to do is shuffle the boogeyman
and the remaining
face downs.
And I think that is basically it, unless Jeb can remember some stuff that we forgot.
The game ends when there's only 1 orphan left. I think that's the only thing that needed to be said. The solo variant is a little bit different. It says how to set that up.
I didn't read that. If Jeb wants to tell you a little bit about it, he can, because I don't know anything about solo variant.
For that one, it has the shape of the map. It tells you how to do that, and then it gives you the rules on how you win and lose and stuff. So just check the rule book. And
the boogeyman.
Yeah, the boogeyman actually has
stuff,
the figure.
Right? He does stuff. Jeb plays solo games more than I do, so I don't know. Maybe he'll record a session by himself and show you how to play. Probably not, but anyways. But there is a lot of people like solo games. I like having the option. I just don't. Most of the time I'm too busy. Like I wait for friends and play a game, but I understand the need for it, and if they work well, that's a great thing to have in the game.
Yeah.
Actually, Mage Knight is one of the best solo games there is, because I always like to get my Mage Knight thing in there.
Yeah, there's I've done hit and miss solo games, so it's a coin toss for me. Right. But anyway, another thing that we should probably say is there were 2 acts of desperation that we had that were extra. There's always going to be 6 acts of desperation in the game. Those extra 2 can be interchanged with 2 of the normal 6. So that's another thing. And that also introduces another boogeyman. So if you want to play it where there's 2 boogeymen in the acts of desperation, you can do that. But aside from that, that's pretty much all the gameplay. You move around and try to survive
Oh yeah, and if you play with 4 people, don't forget to put the extra cards in.
Right. Yes. Put the 4-player cards in.
I wonder if the 4-player makes it even.
Oh
Remember
yeah,
you said?
we didn't.
I don't know. You said there's 32?
There were
right?
38 normally.
There's 38 normally, and then we can add... Wait for it, people. Wait for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 2 I don't know what to do with. So it had 14 to
52.
That does divide by 4.
So that
Look
works out.
at that!
Oh.
Wow! Still don't know what those are for. Oh, that one's solo play. Oh, both of the other ones are solo play! How about that? So we do know what everything's for.
Alright.
Most.
The guys who make this game, they're going to watch this video and they'll be like, those 2 idiots. No.
But anyways, don't forget to read the box in this game. It's hilarious.
Yes, there's lots of
There's
funny
stuff all over the place.
Anyway, we're rambling and we're not even into the gameplay. So
Alright.
we're going to get to the gameplay.